In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate, have you ever stayed awake at night worrying about your future? Wondering, what if things don't work out? Feeling fear, anxiety, uncertainty. What if I told you your future has already been written perfectly by Allah Himself? Then why are we still afraid? Why do we carry stress as if we control what only Allah controls? This reminder could change the way you see your life forever. Don't miss it. Allah tells us in the Quran that He is Al-Alim, the All-Knowing, and Al-Hakim, the Most Wise. Everything that happens, every delay, every hardship, every delay, every success is already part of a perfect plan designed just for you. But when we forget this, we live in fear instead of peace, in stress instead of trust, tawakkul. This message is for every Muslim who feels overwhelmed by the future. Fear of the unknown is something almost every one of us silently carries. You might smile during the day, stay busy, talk to people. But deep inside, there is a question that keeps you turning. What is going to happen to me? This fear creeps into your thoughts when you are alone, when things don't go as planned, or when life feels uncertain. And slowly, without you even realizing it, this fear begins to affect your relationship with Allah, because when fear takes over, trust starts to weaken. We begin to rely more on our limited understanding instead of Allah's infinite wisdom. We overthink every situation, trying to predict outcomes, trying to control what is beyond our control. You plan every detail, you worry about every possibility, and when things don't go the way you expected, your heart becomes restless. This constant state of worry drains your energy, steals your peace, and fills your heart with anxiety. It makes you forget a very powerful truth. Allah already knows, Allah already planned, and Allah is never wrong. When fear dominates your heart, it also affects your obedatement. Your salata feels distracted, because your mind is occupied with what-if scenarios. Your dua becomes rushed or filled with desperation instead of calm trust. Even when you remember Allah, it feels like you are asking from a place of panic, not from a place of certainty. And this is how fear quietly weakens your iman, not by removing it completely, but by shaking its strength. But here is the reality you need to remind yourself of again and again. The future you are afraid of is already in the hands of Ar-Rahman. Every moment of your life has been written with knowledge, wisdom, and mercy. Nothing will reach you except what Allah has already allowed. So why carry the burden of something that is not yours to carry? The solution begins with a simple but powerful shift in your mindset. Instead of asking, what if things go wrong? Start reminding yourself, even if things don't go my way, Allah's way is better. This is not just a statement, it is a belief that needs to settle deep in your heart. When you truly accept this, fear starts to lose its power over you. Train your heart to respond differently. When anxiety enters, pause for a moment and consciously turn to Allah. Say with sincerity, Hasbi Allahu wa ni'mal wakil. Let these words sink into your qalb, not just your tongue. Understand what you are saying. Allah is enough for me, and He is the best disposer of affairs. This means you are not alone, you are not lost, and you are not in control. Allah is make it a habit to remind yourself daily that uncertainty is part of life. But it is not a threat to you, it is a test of your trust. The more you practice this mindset, the lighter your heart will feel. You will begin to notice that situations that once caused you stress no longer have the same effect on you. Not because your life suddenly became perfect, but because your trust in Allah became stronger. And when your trust becomes stronger, something beautiful happens. You start living with peace, even in uncertainty. There is a quiet struggle happening inside many of us. We are constantly trying to control everything. We plan every step, calculate every possibility, and hold tightly to how we think life should unfold. You tell yourself, if I just do everything right, things will go exactly as I want. But when reality doesn't match your expectations, frustration sets in, stress builds, and deep down, you feel exhausted. Because the truth is, you are carrying a responsibility that was never meant to be yours. Control belongs to Allah alone. You were never created to manage outcomes. You were created to make effort and then trust Him with the rest. Yet we reverse this order. We depend completely on our plans and treat trust in Allah as an afterthought. This is why even small setbacks feel overwhelming. When something goes wrong, it doesn't just feel like a delay. It feels like failure, because in your mind, everything depended on you. This mindset slowly drains your emotional and spiritual strength. You overanalyze situations, replay conversations, and worry about decisions long after they are made, even when things are going well. there is still a sense of unease because you are afraid something might go wrong. This constant pressure creates a cycle of anxiety that never truly ends, and the more you try to control, the more you realize how little is actually in your hands. But Islam teaches us a different way to live, a way that brings balance to the heart. You are encouraged to plan, to work hard, to take action. Effort is jawzaba for your responsibility, but naltaj, the outcomes are not yours. They belong entirely to Allah. When you truly understand this, something inside you begins to shift. You still strive, but you are no longer attached to the result in the same way. Your heart becomes lighter because it is no longer tied to something beyond its control. Think about it. How many times have you planned something perfectly, yet it didn't happen? And how many times did something unexpected turn out better than anything you imagined? These moments are reminders that Allah's plan is always at work, even when you cannot see it. What you consider a setback might actually be protection. What you see as a delay might be preparation for something greater. The key is to learn how to combine effort with trust. Do what you can with sincerity and excellence, but then release the outcome completely to Allah. This doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop carrying the burden of control. After you have done your part, turn to Allah with humility and say, Ya Allah, I have done what I can. I trust your decision more than my own. Say it with conviction, even if your heart is still learning to believe it. Over time, this practice changes the way you respond to life. When things don't go your way, you don't fall apart. You pause, reflect, and remind yourself that Allah's wisdom is greater than your understanding. When things do go your way, you feel gratitude instead of pride because you recognize that success came from Him, not just your effort. Letting go of control is not weakness. It is a form of deep strength. It is an act of worship. It is choosing to rely on the one who never makes mistakes. And when you finally release what was never yours to hold, you will discover a sense of peace that control could never give you. One of the most painful feelings a person can experience is waiting for something they deeply want and not seeing it happen. You make dua with sincerity. You ask Allah again and again. And when the answer does not come in the way or time you expected, a quiet disappointment begins to grow inside your heart. You start to wonder, why is this not happening for me? Or even more dangerously, is Allah not listening to me? These thoughts can slowly shake your hope if you are not careful. But this is where a powerful misunderstanding needs to be corrected. A delay does not mean denial. Just because something has not come to you yet does not mean it will never come, and it certainly does not mean Allah has ignored. In fact, sometimes the very delay you are experiencing is a sign of Allah's care for you. Because Allah sees what you cannot see, and He knows what you do not know. You are looking at your situation from a limited perspective. You see only the present moment, your emotions, your desires. But Allah sees the full picture, your future, the consequences, the hidden risks, and the opportunities you cannot even imagine. What you're asking for might seem perfect right now, but if it were given to you at this moment, it could harm you, distract you, or lead you away from something better. So Allah, in His mercy, holds it back, not to punish you, but to protect you. This is why delays often feel heavy, because you are emotionally attached to a specific outcome. And when it doesn't happen, your heart struggles to understand why. You compare yourself to others who seem to be getting what you want. You feel left behind, forgotten, or less favored. But the truth is your journey is different because your fasta is different. Allah is writing a story for you that is unique, and every delay has a purpose within that story. Sometimes the delay is preparing you. There are qualities you need to develop, lessons you need to learn, or strength you need to learn, or strength you need to build before you receive what you are asking for. If it came too early, you might not appreciate it, or you might not be able to handle it properly. Other times, the delay is redirecting you towards something better, something you did not even think to ask for. And one day, when you look back, you will realize that what you thought was a missed opportunity was actually a hidden blessing. Think about moments in your life where something did not work out, and at the time, it felt disappointing. But later, you understood why it had to happen that way. Maybe it saved you from a wrong decision, a harmful relationship, or a path that was not meant for you. These are signs that Allah's wisdom is always active, even when you cannot immediately recognize it. The key is to train your heart to respond to delays with trust instead of doubt. When something you want is postponed, remind yourself gently, Allah knows and I do not know. Continue making dua, but let your heart rest in the certainty that Allah is responding in the best way possible. Your dua is never wasted. It is either being answered delayed for the right time or replaced with something better. When you truly understand this, waiting no longer feels like emptiness. It becomes an act of worship, a moment of patience, and a sign of your trust in Allah's perfect timing. There is a special kind of peace that does not come from having everything in life perfectly arranged, but from knowing that no matter what happens, you are under the care of Allah. This peace is called tawakkul, true trust in Allah. It is not just a word we say, and it is not something we claim only when things are easy. Tawakkul is a state of the heart, a deep inner reliance that transforms how you experience every moment of your life. Many people say they trust Allah, but when a difficulty arises, their hearts immediately fill with worry. They panic, overthink, and imagine the worst outcomes. This shows that tawakkul has not yet settled deeply within the heart. Because when trust is truly present, it does not remove effort or concern completely, but it changes the way you carry them. You still care, you still try, but your heart is not overwhelmed by fear. Without tawakkul, life feels heavy. Every decision becomes stressful, every uncertainty becomes frightening, and every delay feels unbearable. You find yourself constantly thinking about what might go wrong. Even when things are going well, you are unable to fully relax because you are afraid of losing what you have. This constant tension is a sign that the heart is relying too much on circumstances and not enough on the creator of those circumstances. But when tawakkul begins to grow, something beautiful happens inside you. You start to feel a quiet calmness, even in situations that used to make you anxious. You realize that you are not facing life alone. You begin to understand that Allah is managing every detail, even the ones you cannot see. This awareness softens your qalb and removes the sharp edges of fear. Building this level of trust does not happen overnight. It requires a consistent effort to strengthen your connection with Allah. The more you turn to Him, the more your heart learns to rely on Him. One of the most powerful ways to develop tawakkul is through your daily acts of worship. When you pray on time with focus and sincerity, you are reminding yourself that Allah is in control. When you make dua regularly, you are training your heart to depend on Him instead of your own limited abilities. And when you engage with the Quran, you are feeding your soul with reminders of Allah's power, mercy, and wisdom. It is also important to be mindful of your thoughts. Tawakkul is not just about actions, it is also about how you think. When negative thoughts enter your mind, instead of allowing them to grow, gently replace them with trust. Remind yourself, Allah is taking care of this situation even if I cannot see how. This simple shift can gradually change your emotional response to challenges. Another key part of tawakkul is accepting outcomes with rida, contentment. This does not mean you will always understand why something happened, but it means you trust that there is wisdom behind it. When things go differently than you hoped, instead of resisting reality, you learn to say, Alhamdulillah for what Allah has chosen. This acceptance brings a level of peace that cannot be achieved through control or overthinking. As your tawakkul strengthens, you begin to move through life with a different kind of confidence. Not confidence in yourself alone, but confidence in Allah's plan for you. You stop fearing the future in the same way, because you know that whatever comes, Allah will give you the strength to handle it. And this is where true inner peace is found. Not in having certainty about what will happen, but in having certainty about who is in control. When you go through a difficult time, it is very easy to feel like something is going wrong in your life. Pain has a way of narrowing your vision. You focus only on what is hurting, what is missing, and what is not working. In those moments, it can feel as if you are being held back while everyone else is moving forward. You may even begin to question, why is this happening to me? But what if the very hardship you are struggling with is actually part of your preparation for something greater? Every test you face carries a purpose, even if that purpose is not immediately clear. In Islam, trials are not meaningless obstacles. They are carefully placed moments designed by Allah to shape your character, strengthen your faith, and elevate your status. But when you misunderstand your tests, you start to see them as punishments rather than opportunities. This misunderstanding can drain your motivation, weaken your patience, and fill your heart with negativity. Think about how you respond when something difficult happens. If your first reaction is frustration or despair, it becomes harder to move forward with strength. You feel stuck, as if the hardship is blocking your path. But when you begin to shift your perspective, you realize that the hardship is not blocking your path, it is part of your path. It is teaching you lessons you could not learn any other way. Sometimes Allah puts you in situations that push you beyond your comfort zone so you can grow. You discover strengths you did not know you had. You learn patience when things take longer than expected. You learn humility when things do not go your way. You learn reliance on Allah when you realize that your own efforts are not enough. These qualities are not developed in ease, they are developed through challenge. Look at the lives of the prophets. They were the most beloved to Allah, yet they faced the greatest trials. Their hardships were not a sign of failure, they were a sign of their elevation. Their patience, trust, and perseverance turned their struggles into sources of azamat. This is a powerful reminder that difficulty does not mean you are beyond from Allah, it can mean you are being brought closer to Him in a very special way. It is also important to understand that some tests are not only about what you are going through, but about where Allah is taking you. There may be doors that can only open after you have developed certain qualities. There may be blessings that require a stronger version of you, someone more patient, more resilient, more connected to Allah. Without the test, you might not be ready for what is ahead. This is why your mindset matters so much. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Try asking, what is this teaching me? This small shift changes everything. This small shift changes everything. It turns your hardship into a source of growth rather than a source of defeat. It allows you to move forward with purpose instead of feeling stuck in pain. You can also take practical steps to navigate your tests in a healthy way. Stay consistent with your salah, even when it feels difficult. Make dua not only for relief, but for strength and understanding. Surround yourself with reminders that bring you closer to Allah. And most importantly, be patient with yourself. Growth takes time, and every step forward, no matter how small, is valuable. When you begin to see your tests as part of your journey towards success, something inside you changes. You no longer feel completely broken by hardship. Instead, you start to see it as a process. One that is shaping you into someone stronger, wiser, and more prepared for what Allah has written for you. We spend so much of our time worrying about this life, our careers, our finances, our relationships, our plans, that we forget to reflect on the most important future of all. The reality is, no matter how long we live, this dunya is temporary. Every problem that feels overwhelming today will eventually pass. Every fear that keeps you awake at night will eventually pass. Every fear that keeps you awake at night will come to an end. But there is one future that will never end, one destination that truly deserves your focus, and that is the Akhirah. When the heart becomes too attached to this world, even small difficulties begin to feel huge. A delay in your plans feels like a crisis. A loss feels unbearable. A moment of uncertainty feels like everything is falling apart. This happens because the heart is focused on something that was never meant to be permanent. You start measuring your success by temporary standards, and when those standards are not met, it creates anxiety and dissatisfaction. But when you shift your focus toward the Akhirah, your entire perspective changes. You begin to see this life for what it truly is, a test, a journey, a passing phase. The things that once felt so heavy start to feel lighter, not because they disappear, but because you understand that they are not the final outcome. You realize that true success is not in having everything you want here, but in earning the pleasure of Allah and attaining Jannah. This shift in perspective brings a unique kind of clarity. You start to ask yourself different questions. Instead of constantly thinking, am I getting what I want in this life, you begin to ask, am I doing what will benefit me in the next life? This question changes your priorities. It influences your decisions, your habits, and even the way you respond to challenges. For example, when you face a hardship, instead of seeing it as something purely negative, you begin to see it as an opportunity to earn reward through patience. When you resist a temptation, you remind yourself that what is with Allah is better and more lasting. When you perform a small act of ibadah, you recognize that it may carry a weight far greater than anything in this dunya. This awareness transforms ordinary moments into meaningful steps towards something eternal. It also helps you manage fear in a healthier way. You no longer fear the future of this dunya in the same way, because you know that whatever happens here is temporary and under Allah's control. Instead, your concern shifts towards something more important. You're standing with Allah. This is a fear that motivates rather than paralyzes. It pushes you to improve, to seek forgiveness, and to stay consistent in your abadate. A practical way to strengthen this mindset is to regularly remind yourself of the Akhirah. Reflect on the reality of standing before Allah. Think about the moment when all excuses will fade and only your actions will remain. This is not meant to create despair, but to awaken purpose within you. It helps you stay grounded and focused on what truly matters. You can also build simple daily habits that connect you to this goal. Be mindful of your prayers, guard your intentions, and try to do small good deeds consistently. Even a sincere smile, a kind word, or a moment of patience can become a source of immense reward. These small actions, when done for the sake of Allah, are investments in a future that will never expire. When your heart becomes attached to Jannah's summit, then beautiful happens. You start to live with hope, even in difficulty. You find meaning in your struggles and you feel motivated.